The sun was setting, casting long, warm shadows through the expansive windows of our gallery, Artisano. The light danced across the canvases, giving life to the colors that seemed almost to breathe under its touch. I, Theo, stood back, admiring not just the art, but the life I had meticulously curated here with my wife, Elise. The gallery was more than just a business to us. It was our shared passion, a testament to our love for art, and, I believed, for each other. Artisano was nestled in a quaint, cobblestone street of our little town, known for its vibrant art scene. Our gallery had become a beacon for local artists and art enthusiasts alike. I had always been the visionary, dreaming up exhibitions that would challenge and inspire, while Elise was the heart, her warmth drawing people in, making them feel part of something special. Our marriage, much like our gallery, was a work of art. We had painted a life together, choosing each element with care, ensuring our colors complemented and our lines flowed into each other. Yet, beneath this picture of perfection, I would later learn, lay shadows much darker than those cast by the setting sun. That evening, as we closed up, Elise was radiant, her laughter echoing through the now empty space. She spoke with excitement about the upcoming exhibit, one featuring a new artist in town. Vincent, she called him, her voice carrying a note of admiration I hadn't heard before. He's going to bring something truly unique to Artisano, she said, her eyes sparkling with an intensity that made me pause. I nodded, smiling, but there was a prick of something unfamiliar in my chest. I brushed it off as mere excitement for the new talent Elise was so eager to champion. After all, wasn't this what we had built this gallery for? To discover, to share, to connect through art? As we walked home, hand in hand, under the starlit sky, I felt a sense of unease, like a brushstroke out of place. But I didn't want to mar the beauty of our shared dream with doubts. Maybe, I thought, it was just the artist in me always looking for the next inspiration, the next challenge. Little did I know the real challenge was about to begin, not in the world of art, but in the very fabric of our marriage. Vincent arrived in town like a storm, not destructive but transformative, altering the landscape of our little art community. His reputation preceded him. Whispers of his talent, his eccentricity, and his magnetic personality had already woven through the local art circles. I had heard of him but never met him, until that fateful day when he walked into Artisano, his presence filling the space like a new exhibit. He was tall, with an unshakable air of confidence, his dark hair falling in waves that seemed to echo the chaos and beauty of his paintings. His eyes, a piercing blue, seemed to see right through you, into the very soul of one's artistic spirit. Elise was there when he arrived, and I watched as her face lit up with a joy I hadn't seen in a while. "Vincent, welcome to Artisano," she greeted him with open arms, her enthusiasm almost palpable. They hugged, a gesture that felt too familiar, too warm, for someone we were just meeting for the first time. I shook his hand, trying to match his charisma with my own polite warmth. But there was something about him, something unsettling yet undeniably compelling. Vincent brought with him not just his art but stories from his travels. Anecdotes of art scenes in Paris, New York, and Tokyo, each tale more enthralling than the last. He spoke of art not just as a craft but as an adventure, a way of life. Elise hung on every word, her laughter mingling with his in a harmony that resonated through the gallery. I watched them, this dance of enthusiasm and admiration, and felt an outsider in my own space. Vincent seemed to fit into our world, into Elise's world, with an ease that I found myself envying. He was the artist we had always wanted to exhibit, bringing new life, new ideas. But there was a part of me, a small, nagging part, that feared what this new life might mean for the old one we had built. As days turned into weeks, Vincent became a fixture at Artisano. He would come early, leave late, and every moment seemed to be spent in conversation with Elise. They discussed art, techniques, future exhibits, their voices a constant hum in the background of my work. I told myself it was good for the gallery, good for our business, but the unease grew. It was during one of these days, watching Elise laugh at something Vincent said, her hand accidentally brushing his arm, that I felt the first crack in our canvas of marital bliss. The colors of trust seemed to blur, and I couldn't help but wonder what new shades might be painted into our lives with Vincent's arrival. The gallery had never felt so alive. Vincent's presence was like a new theme in our ongoing exhibition of life. His paintings, bold and expressive, mirrored his personality, and they drew crowds like never before. But it wasn't just the art. It was Vincent himself, his charisma turning every visit into an event. Elise took to managing Vincent's exhibitions with a zeal I hadn't seen before. She was there for the setup, the lighting, even moving paintings around to find the perfect spot for each piece. I watched her, proud yet puzzled by this newfound energy. It was as if she had found a new muse, not in art, but in the artist himself. One evening, after everyone had left, I stayed back to work on some paperwork. The gallery was quiet, the only sound the soft echo of my footsteps on the wooden floor. That's when I heard them, the low murmur of voices from the back room where we stored the art supplies. Curiosity, or perhaps something darker, led me closer. Through the slightly ajar door I saw them, Elise and Vincent, not just talking but laughing, sharing a moment that seemed too intimate for a professional setting. Vincent was showing her something on a canvas, his hand guiding hers, their touch lingering. The scene was innocent enough, but the intimacy of it struck me like a misplaced stroke on a masterpiece. I stepped back, the floor creaking under my weight. They heard it, turning to look at me, their faces, a mix of surprise and something else I couldn't quite read. "Oh, Theo, you scared us." Elise laughed, but her laugh was too high, too forced. Vincent just smiled, his eyes meeting mine with an unsettling calmness. I made some excuse about finishing up work and left them to it, but the image stayed with me. That night, as I lay beside Elise, listening to her breathe, I couldn't shake off the feeling of an intruder in our life, not just in our gallery but in our marriage. Over the next few days, I made excuses to be around more, watching, listening. Vincent's name came up more often in our conversations, his influence growing not just in our gallery but in our home. Elise would talk about his ideas, his vision, with a fervor that once was reserved for ours. The first brushstroke of doubt had been painted, not on canvas but in my heart. I began to see the signs, the late nights at the gallery, the secretive smiles, the way they seemed to communicate without words. Each interaction was a stroke, slowly changing the picture of our life together. I told myself it was just the art, just the excitement of new talent, but deep down I knew. I knew this was more than just professional admiration. Vincent had not just entered our gallery. He was painting his way into our lives, and I feared the final picture would not be one I recognized. The days at Artisano continued to blur into one another, each one seemingly more vibrant with Vincent's influence. His art was not just on the walls but in every conversation, every plan, every breath of the gallery. I tried to immerse myself in the business aspects, hoping to drown out the growing suspicion, but it was like trying to ignore a storm while standing in its eye. One afternoon, I stumbled upon something that made my heart sink. In the back room, hidden amongst canvases and paint, lay a sketchbook. It wasn't Vincent's usual flamboyant style that filled its pages, but rather a series of meticulous, almost identical replicas of famous artworks. My initial confusion turned to dread as I realized these were not studies but forgeries. Flipping through the pages, I found sketches that matched some of the pieces we had recently sold or showcased as part of Vincent's collection. The realization hit me like a cold wave. We were possibly selling forgeries. My mind raced to Elise, her enthusiasm, her closeness with Vincent. Was she aware? Was she involved? I confronted her that evening, the sketchbook in hand. Her reaction was not one of shock but of fear, her eyes wide as she stammered explanations. "It's not what you think," she began, but her words lacked conviction. She admitted that Vincent had started teaching her techniques for replication, not for deceit, she claimed, but for learning, for art's sake. But the line between education and fraud had clearly blurred. The betrayal wasn't just in the forgery. It was in the secrecy, the intimacy of this project between them. My heart felt like it was being painted over with dark, heavy strokes of doubt and betrayal. I wanted to believe in her innocence, in our marriage, but the evidence was like a canvas smeared with truths I couldn't ignore. The discovery of the forgeries was a turning point. I couldn't look at our gallery in the same way anymore, nor could I look at Elise. Each piece of art now held a question mark. Each smile from her seemed like a mask. I began to see the gallery not as our shared dream but as a stage for deceit. My days turned into a silent investigation. I started documenting everything, from sales records to the origins of each piece we displayed. The more I dug, the more I uncovered. There were discrepancies. Pieces sold under Vincent's name that didn't match his known style or period of work. It was clear we were dealing in lies. Elise noticed the change in me, the distance, the long hours spent away from her. She tried to reach out, to pull me back into the warmth of our shared life, but each attempt only made me more aware of the chasm between us. "What's wrong, Theo?" she would ask, her voice laced with concern that now sounded like guilt to my ears. I couldn't bring myself to confront her directly again. Instead, I watched, listened, pieced together the puzzle of our betrayal. Conversations overheard, late-night calls, the way Vincent would linger at the gallery long after it should have closed. My trust in her, in us, was eroding like sandcastles under the tide. The community around us started to whisper. The art world is small, and gossip travels faster than the speed of paint drying. Rumors about the authenticity of Vincent's works began to circulate, casting shadows over our once celebrated gallery. I knew it was only a matter of time before these whispers turned into roars that could destroy us. The tension within me reached a breaking point. It was during one of our monthly gallery nights, an event meant to celebrate art and community, that the facade began to crumble. I had decided to use this event to confront the truth, not just for my own peace of mind but for the integrity of Artisano. I invited several art critics and historians, known for their sharp eyes and even sharper tongues. The plan was simple yet fraught with risk. I would let the professionals uncover the truth. As the night unfolded, I watched from the sidelines, my heart a drumbeat of anticipation and dread. One critic, known for his discerning taste, paused before a piece supposedly by Vincent, his brow furrowed. He called over another, and soon a small crowd gathered around the painting. I heard the whispers, the murmurs of doubt. Then came the moment I had both feared and awaited. They declared it a forgery. The room seemed to fall into a hush, then erupted into chaos. The art community was shocked, outraged, and above all, disappointed. Elisa's face turned pale, her eyes searching for mine in the crowd, her expression one of horror and betrayal. Vincent, on the other hand, looked more like a cornered animal than a celebrated artist. I stepped forward, the weight of my decision heavy on my shoulders. "I believe we need to address this," I said, my voice steady despite the storm inside me. I explained how I had come to suspect the forgeries, my investigation, and my confrontation with Elise. The fallout was immediate. Accusations flew, apologies were demanded. Elise tried to speak, to explain, but the words were lost in the tumult. Vincent disappeared into the night, leaving behind a gallery full of people questioning the authenticity of art, of relationships, of trust. That night, Artisano ceased to be a sanctuary of art and became a battlefield of truth. My marriage, once a masterpiece, now lay in ruins, the gallery echoing with the sounds of a dream shattered. But amidst this chaos, I felt a strange sense of relief. The truth, however painful, was out. Now we would all have to live with the consequences. The morning after the gallery night was one of the longest of my life. The silence of our home was deafening, filled with the weight of the previous night's revelations. Elise and I avoided each other, moving through the house like ghosts, each consumed by our own turmoil. But I knew silence wouldn't mend what was broken. Action was needed, not just for retribution but for closure. The betrayal wasn't just personal. It had tarnished the integrity of our gallery, our life's work. I needed a plan not just for revenge but for redemption. The idea came to me in the quiet hours before dawn, a plan that would intertwine art with justice. I would use the upcoming major exhibit, one that was to be our biggest event of the year, as the stage. This exhibit, initially planned to celebrate new talent, would now serve a dual purpose: to expose the deceit and to perhaps salvage something from the wreckage of our reputation. My strategy was intricate. I would invite back the same critics and historians who had uncovered the forgery, but this time under the guise of a grand reveal of new art. I would mix genuine pieces with known forgeries, but everything would be presented with impeccable documentation, all leading to a climactic moment where the truth would be laid bare, not just about the art but about those who had deceived us. The plan required secrecy and precision. I started working from our home office, away from the gallery and Elisa's watchful eyes. I contacted artists, art experts, and even some journalists, all under the pretense of creating a spectacular event. Each piece of the puzzle was carefully placed, each conversation a step closer to my goal. The weeks leading up to the exhibit were a whirlwind of activity. I transformed into a conductor of an orchestra, where every note had to be perfect. The gallery was closed for renovations, a cover for setting up the exhibit. I worked with trusted friends, those who knew the pain of betrayal and the love for art, to help me arrange everything. The centerpiece of the exhibit was to be an installation I titled The Truth in Art. It was a series of panels where each would reveal either a genuine piece or a forgery, with accompanying documentation. The climax would be a live demonstration where experts would authenticate each piece in front of an audience, exposing the forgeries and thus, indirectly, the forgers. Elise was kept in the dark about the true nature of the exhibit. She was involved in the logistics, believing we were moving forward, perhaps even that we were healing. Her involvement was crucial to make the event seem legitimate to Vincent, who I hoped would attend, lured by the promise of redemption or at least a chance to salvage his reputation. The invitations went out, each one a silent promise of an event that would be remembered in the art community. The art world buzzed with anticipation, unaware of the storm brewing beneath the serene surface of our preparations. The night of the exhibit arrived, and Artisano was transformed. The lighting was dramatic, casting shadows and highlights that danced across the art, creating an atmosphere of both celebration and tension. Guests arrived in their finest, the air thick with the scent of anticipation and the murmur of excited conversations. Elise, dressed in a gown that shimmered under the gallery lights, played her part perfectly, the gracious host. Her smile was a mask, I knew, one that hid the uncertainty of what this night would reveal. Vincent was there too, his presence like a dark cloud over the festivities, his confidence seemingly unshaken but his eyes darting around, looking for signs of what was to come. I watched from the sidelines, my heart racing. The exhibit was a labyrinth of art, each turn designed to lead to the grand unveiling. I had arranged for the experts to begin their work at a specific time, ensuring that the majority of the attendees would witness the moment of truth. As the evening progressed, the tension built. Guests moved from piece to piece, their comments a mix of praise and speculation. Then, as planned, the experts took the stage. The atmosphere shifted. The chatter quieted down to whispers as they began their analysis. Piece by piece, the truth was laid bare. Each forgery was identified, each genuine piece celebrated. The crowd's reaction was palpable. Gasps, murmurs, and then silence as they realized the extent of the deception. When they reached the works attributed to Vincent, the silence deepened, turning into a palpable shock as one after another was declared a forgery. Elisa's face was a study in horror and realization. Vincent, on the other hand, tried to maintain his composure, but his facade crumbled under the weight of the public's scorn. The truth of the forgeries was out, but so was the truth of our personal betrayal, laid bare for all to see in the art we had once loved so dearly. The night ended not with applause but with the heavy silence of judgment. The gallery, once a place of beauty, now stood as a monument to truth, art, and the cost of betrayal. The aftermath of the unveiling left Artisano in a state of eerie quietude. The guests had left, their departure marked by whispers and the clatter of heels on the gallery's wooden floor, leaving behind an air thick with the scent of betrayal. I stood alone in the space, surrounded by the art that had once been our pride, now almost mocking in its revelation of truth. I had planned for this moment, yet the reality of it was overwhelming. The art experts, having done their part, left with promises of discretion for the sake of the gallery's future. But the damage was done. The gallery's reputation, like a piece of art exposed to the harsh light of day, showed every flaw. Elise had disappeared during the chaos of the reveal. I found her in our office, where we had once planned exhibitions with joy, now surrounded by the debris of our collapsed dreams. Her tears were silent, but her eyes screamed with a pain that mirrored my own. "I didn't know it would go this far," she whispered, her voice breaking. "I thought it was just art." Her words were a plea for understanding, but I couldn't give it, not yet. The betrayal was too fresh, too vivid against the backdrop of our once shared ambitions. I left her there, needing time to process the night's events. The gallery needed to close, not just for today but possibly for good. The art community would be unforgiving, and rebuilding trust would be like painting over a deeply stained canvas. In the days following the exhibit, Vincent became the pariah of our small art world. His name was now synonymous with deceit, his once celebrated works now subjects of derision or, worse, pity. The galleries that had once vied for his art now shunned him, their doors closed to what he had to offer. I kept tabs on his descent through the grapevine of art gossip, which was now more venomous than ever. His attempt to salvage his reputation with a public statement, claiming ignorance and blaming others, was met with scorn. The art world, while often forgiving of eccentricities, has no patience for fraud. Vincent tried to move his career online, showcasing new pieces, but the shadow of his past work loomed large. Art forums buzzed with discussions of his fall, every post a reminder of the night at Artisano. His once vibrant social media presence dwindled, his posts ignored or met with sarcasm. I felt no joy in his downfall. It was not the revenge I had sought, but rather a bitter acknowledgement of the consequences of his actions. His career was not just ruined. It was as if it had never existed. The art world, much like the art itself, can be unforgiving in its judgment. Elise became a ghost of her former self. The vibrant woman who had once turned heads with her laughter now moved through our home like a shadow, her eyes hollow, her spirit broken. The gallery, our shared dream, was now her personal nightmare, a constant reminder of her betrayal and the loss of everything we had built. She tried to reach out, to talk, to explain, but our conversations were stilted, filled with pauses and unsaid words. She spoke of returning to her roots, perhaps starting anew in a place where no one knew her past. "I need to find myself again," she murmured one evening, her voice devoid of its usual warmth. I watched her pack, not just her clothes but her art supplies, her books, the little pieces of our life that had once seemed indestructible. Each box she packed felt like another piece of us disappearing. I wanted to stop her, to scream, to demand why, but the words wouldn't form. What was there left to say that hadn't already been said by the silence between us? She left on a rainy day, the drops on the windows like tears for what we had lost. I stood at the door, watching her go, feeling the weight of our shared history settle around me. Artisano was no longer a gallery. It was a mausoleum of our love, our trust, and our art. The house felt larger, emptier without her. I wandered through the rooms, each one echoing with memories, and finally, I found myself in the gallery. The art was still there, but it felt different now, each piece a testament to the complexities of human emotions, of love, betrayal, and the art of letting go. The decision was made then. Artisano would close, not just as a place of business but as a chapter of my life. The art would be sold, donated, or perhaps kept as a reminder of what once was. But the gallery, our gallery, would be no more. It was time for a new canvas, for new colors, for a new beginning, even if I didn't know yet what that would look like. With Artisano's doors closed, the silence of the gallery was both a relief and a haunting echo. The space, once filled with laughter, art, and life, now felt like a cavern where only the ghosts of what could have been lingered. But amidst this desolation, an idea germinated. One last exhibit, One final statement on art, betrayal, and redemption. I decided to use the gallery not to reopen it, but to transform it into my personal statement. I would create an installation titled The Canvas of Truth. Every piece in this exhibit would reflect the journey from creation to destruction, from love to betrayal, and the possibility of rebirth through art. I worked alone, each brush stroke, each installation piece infused with the emotion of our story. I included fragments of our past exhibits, the forgeries now labeled as such, alongside new works that captured my journey of healing. The centerpiece was a series of canvases, each one depicting stages of our relationship, ending with an abstract piece that symbolized the chaos of betrayal and the hope of new beginnings. I invited only a select few to this private viewing. Art critics who had been at the fateful night, a couple of trusted friends, and a few journalists known for their integrity. The invitations were marked with a simple request: come witness the art of truth. The night of the exhibit, the gallery felt alive again, though in a different way. There was no pretense, no crowd, just the art speaking for itself. I guided them through the pieces, explaining not just the technique but the story behind each. My voice steady but filled with the weight of every word. As we reached the end of the exhibit, I stood before the canvas of truth. I explained how each piece was a chapter, a stroke of our shared life, leading to this moment. With a deep breath, I unveiled the final piece, a live installation where I invited one of the critics to paint on a canvas alongside me. We painted in silence, the only sound the brush strokes on the canvas. It was a metaphor for rebuilding, for creating something new from the ashes of the old. When we stepped back, the piece was chaotic yet beautiful, a stark contrast to the controlled forgeries that had once hung here. This, I said, gesturing to the canvas, is what art should be about: authenticity, vulnerability, growth. The room was quiet, the air thick with understanding. One of the journalists approached, her notepad in hand, her eyes reflective. "What does this mean for you, Theo?" she asked. "It means—" I paused, looking at the gallery, my gallery, one last time. "That art, like life, is about moving forward, about creating from the truth, not hiding from it. Artisano will close, but the art, the lessons, will live on." The critics, moved by the exhibit, wrote not just about the art but about the story it told. The narrative wasn't of scandal but of transformation, of an artist finding his voice through personal turmoil. Their articles would later be cited as some of the most poignant pieces on art and personal redemption. After the exhibit, I closed Artisano for good. The space was sold, but not before I took down the last piece of art from the walls. These pieces, I donated to local schools and community centers, hoping to inspire new artists, perhaps teaching them the value of integrity in art. I moved away from the town, away from the memories, seeking new horizons. I didn't stop creating. If anything, my work became more profound, infused with the lessons of betrayal and forgiveness. Exhibits in different cities followed, each one a step further from the pain, closer to peace. Elise and I didn't speak after she left, but I heard through mutual friends she had started anew, her art reflecting her journey of self-discovery. There was no bitterness left in me, only a quiet hope that she found her path. The art world moved on, as it always does, but the story of Artisano, of our betrayal and redemption, lingered in the hearts of those who knew it. It became a tale told in hushed tones at galleries, a reminder of how art intertwines with life, how it can both destroy and heal. And me? I found peace in knowing that from the darkest betrayal can come the most luminous art. My life, like the canvas of truth, was forever changed, but it was mine to paint anew.